Okay, let's do it. Let's do it, Amit. Welcome to the what is this called again? The 12-hour podcast.
Yeah, 12 hour, but for some reason, this morning when I was getting ready for the podcast, I told myself I'm getting ready for 7 hour podcast.
You were mistaken. You were mistaken, my friend.
Yeah,
This
and
is
if anybody's watching this, it's not 7 hour, it's 12 hour podcast.
that's right. But we only really talk for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah, and someday, maybe, hopefully, we will have a live stream that will last for 12 hours.
That'd be pretty wild. You were saying you're low on energy. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but let's say the week went by really fast and nothing much happened, nothing new happened, and I feel that could be the reason because every time when I see that the days are flying away and something new hasn't happened this week, that kind of gives that feeling of low energy or what you can call languishness.
Okay. Were you expecting something new to happen this week?
Don't we all?
No, not really. Not me. But I'm different from everybody. I expect things to remain the same.
I understand that it's not necessary for something new to happen every week, but you kind of hope, you kind of because that's what gives you that pump. I don't know if it happens with everybody, but it has happened to me quite often.
You like for there to be some level of unpredictability.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I think most people like things to be predictable.
yeah, I understand the importance of routine, but routine is not something that I can follow. It's not something that is for me, really. I can stick to a routine for maybe 10 days, 15 days, but then I have to get back to my, uh, you know, unplanned or a random self.
You need something to happen that's spontaneous.
Hmm.
Yeah. Or
And I
else
love and I
what
love when something unpredictable happens. Suddenly out of nowhere. It can be any small thing. It doesn't have to be a major, life-changing event.
what's an example of an unpredictable thing that has happened? I don't know. The last unpredictable thing. What was it that happened that you can remember anyways?
Mm. Uh, like randomly, I decided I would be writing one song a day from now on.
Okay.
So I started that doing for every morning, and I was able to do that for 3 days. For 3 days, I was writing one song, and it turned out actually okay. It wasn't They weren't great songs or anything, but on the fourth day, it kind of got routine. I felt like I was forcing myself to write a song.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. That's an interesting. Like, what made you choose songwriting as a hobby or something that you would kind of try to do for, I don't know, for however long?
Actually, I used to write songs when I was in college,
Okay.
and after college, I just kind of uh, got out of that. I don't know, habit or hobby. But yeah, even in college, I used to write it randomly. I would just be sitting somewhere, and a tune would come into mind, and along with the tunes, some lyrics would come that would become the beginning of the song. And from there on, it kept on going with the flow, and I would come with a verse, and there would be a song.
When you say writing a song, do you mean do you like, are you talking about the lyrics and the melodies and
Yeah.
like like some instrumental component to it as well, or like what's the depth of songwriting that you get into?
Like in college, I wasn't really good at any instrument, so it was basically a melody. I would hum the melody and lyrics, and I would sing basically the vocals of the song in. And yeah, it was basically, what do you call it without instruments? Unplugged,
A cappella.
a cappella. Yeah. So I don't know if many people do that, but I used to do that, and I just lost the touch with it. And recently, as I've reconnected to music, I gave myself this challenge.
Okay, okay. You decided to create some a cappella types of songs. Um,
Yeah, but this time I used my guitar because now I can play a few chords, so that helps.
okay. So, how do you decide on like how do you decide on like some of the elements of a song? Because there's lots of different bits and pieces of writing a song. So, um, do you like what are some of the things that you consider when you're writing a song?
To be honest, I don't really think too much. I just give myself the chance to, come up with an intro, first of all, because I feel that's where every song begins. So intro is kind of the most important part that I wait for, and I wait for it to come to me naturally. So what I do is I experiment with different melodies or different chords, and if there is something that kind of feels right in the moment, and the intro kind of comes to the melody by itself. For example, the one I wrote last was, it's a Hindi song, so the chords were E, A minor, or A, A major, E, A major, and B. So can you imagine that?
Sure. Okay.
E, A major, B major, and now while I was playing that, strumming that, the lyrics that came to my mind were Panchi. It was like पंछी उड़ा है कहाँ ले चल मुझे भी वहाँ. So I was trying these chords, and these lyrics came to me by themselves. So I just went with the flow.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Um, so I don't know if you know this or not, but I have a little bit of a background in songwriting.
Amazing.
So I don't know if we ever talked about this before, but
No.
so I began writing songs, well, writing parts of songs, bits and pieces of songs when I was about 14.
Hmm.
And I was in a lot of different bands from the age of 14 until 30, 31.
Wow.
And I got a chance to write a lot of songs with a lot of different people. And I got to the point where I had written with some folks that I was in a band with. We happened to write a song that actually got on the radio at one point.
Huh.
And we got to write with some pretty amazing songwriters. One guy that we got to write with won. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the award that's called a Juno. Award.
Juno. Is it like for upcoming musicians?
Um, it's have you heard of the Grammys? The Grammy
Yeah.
Awards. So it's like those, but it's the Canadian version of those awards. So it's just for Canadian
Uh,
artists. So they're Grammy Awards,
that's a big
essentially,
deal.
but they're just for Canadian artists. So they're called Junos.
Hmm.
So we got to write with um, someone that wanted Juno. We also got to write with somebody that won some Grammys as well. That wrote for some pretty big artists, like ones that you for sure heard of. Um,
That's impressive.
so I learned a few things about songwriting, and I also have followed a lot of musicians and listened to a lot of musicians that have written some pretty big songs, and listened just to whatever I could and found out whatever I could about like how they described songwriting whenever they did interviews, and I try to take some of those ideas and use them for myself. Um, so it's interesting because a lot of times people think, and this does exist, where people will write a song just simply based upon whatever comes to their mind, and they just let it pour out of them. There is that element to it for sure, but a lot of it is very methodical. Like a lot of it is very like well thought through, and like
Mm.
the nuts and bolts are really considered and analyzed, and like it's strategized, and there's methodology to it, and there's a sort of a experimental component to it where you try these sort of things out for the song, but then you're like, maybe it can kind of do this, or then you kind of evolve it, and then maybe you show it to some people and you get some feedback, and then you evolve it more based upon that feedback. So there's a lot of, there's very, like a lot of times you might hear an artist talk about how they just sat down and they just wrote a song from beginning to end, but they're likely not telling you a lot. Like that's very high level. It's true, but it's very high level. Like there's a lot of nuts and bolts and like intricacies and a lot of things that are happening that they're probably not going to go into because the average person probably, I mean, maybe they just don't care. Or maybe it's just like a little soundbite. They want, it's an interview. Maybe they're going to talk about a whole bunch of different things, and they can't go into all the nitty gritty about what they do when they write a song. But there's usually, typically, a lot that goes into it, a tremendous amount that goes into it. So, if there's ever some ideas that you'd like to explore, or just sort
Hmm.
of concepts or like methodologies or strategies that you'd like to explore into songwriting, I think that would help. Because if you're just going based upon how you're feeling or what you're thinking in the moment, you could be limiting yourself in terms of what you could potentially come up with. It's like anything. If you
Mm.
if you if you only have one tool to use to build a house, you're going to be
Mm.
limited to what type of house you're going to be able to create, or if you're going to even be able to create a house,
Gotcha.
right? But if you have as many tools as you could possibly ever imagine to make a house, well, then you could come up with probably so many different types of homes using all kinds of different materials, having it all kinds of different styles in all kinds of different environments, right? And if you have not just the right all kinds of different tools to choose from, but all kinds of different ingredients to choose from, and you know what all those options actually are, then your possibilities really open up, right? So if you're relying again on like one particular method, which it sounds like your method is, not that it's a bad method, it's a good method. But if you're relying on, say, just not saying that this is happening with you in particular, but I'm just saying if somebody is to rely on one method, then they're going to be probably limited as to how much they can really
Mm.
do and how much they can really come up with. And they might get into sort of a mode where they're demotivated because it just seems as if there's nothing else. Like they just, run out of ideas and hit a brick wall. And then they might think to themselves, I'm not capable of writing songs more than a few songs, and they may sound very similar, and so maybe that helps a little bit for perspective. I don't know.
No, you're right. Because if I wait for the song to come to me, I'll probably write maybe 10 to 15 songs a year. But if I follow the method as you mentioned, I can create every week.
Maybe, 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 but the idea is that it will be easier. It'll be easier to create a wider variety of songs. Um, you won't be making yourself crazy to try to do it, and it'll seem more interesting and fun because you'll have more tools and more ingredients at your disposal. So it'll seem more
Mhm.
exciting and interesting. Yeah. So there's a lot to consider when writing a song. There's a tremendous amount. Things that you probably wouldn't have ever thought of before if they were pointed out to
Mhm.
you.
Right. Because the final product has to sound in a specific way.
Well, I mean, Final Part doesn't have to sound in a doesn't have to have a particular sound. It all just depends on your purpose. That's kind of like one of the first things to that's I think really important to think about when you're writing a song is to determine like what is the purpose of what you're writing. Like again, when you're building a house, there's a purpose to building a house. There's a purpose to building this house versus building that house that are vastly different homes. Each one has a particular purpose. So if you have a purpose and the purpose is to build this house, but you end up building this house instead, you didn't fulfill the purpose. This house might be wonderful and great, but you didn't fulfill the purpose. So, was that really a successful house that was built? So, the same thing with songwriting. You want to like
Mm.
have a purpose. If you have a purpose, the chances and you have a method to getting towards that purpose, you have a strategy to engineer that
Gotcha.
that song. Then the chances of you getting and engineering the song you intended to engineer is much higher because you have not just a purpose, not just a thing that you're trying to get towards, but you have a strategy in order to get there, and you have the right tools and ingredients to get you there. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's better to have an end goal in mind. End goal.
Some sort of, excuse me, some sort of. I think, anyways. Some people may disagree with me. Again, I don't think that there's like one particular strategy, but I think one strategy that's always worked well for me is I think it's good to have some sort of rough ideas to a destination that you want to go towards. Like an idea of what you want the song to do, right? Like what sort of why are you writing the song in the first place? Like in terms of not like I don't mean the why. The why is not like because I want to do like it could be. Yeah, I want to do something fun and creative and okay, fine, that's true. But I'm talking about the types of whys like um, I want to capture an emotion or I want to communicate something to people that hear this such that it'll make them dance or the purpose of this song is to connect with a large group of people on a really deep psychological level. Right?
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of purpose that you want to define. I think if the purpose, like, again, there's nothing wrong with, I want to write a song because I just want to do something fun and interesting. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. I just think that, well, there's so many different types of songs that might do that for you, right? But if the purpose is to, like one of those ideas talked about, then you can start to imagine what that song might sound like. Like if I said, if it's a song that you're going to
Mhm.
dance to, that is obviously quite a bit different of a song than the type of song that might be more deeper emotionally. Like you can already imagine what those songs might sound like, right?
I'm getting it. I'm getting it. Like then the beats and the intricate instruments, all these things might come up.
Yeah, you might sort of
Right now, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not thinking about them right now because I'm just focusing on the lyrics.
yeah, it's not necessarily instrumentation, but the lyrics too, right? Like you could probably already imagine if I say, I want you to write a song that is going to be something that people are going to dance to. You could probably already start to imagine what type of lyrics you'd want to include, right? So it gives you a direction. It sort of
Hmm.
focuses your songwriting. If it's too open ended and anything is possible, then it's too big. It's like overwhelming. It's like, oh my God, where am I even going? Right? And it's easy just to go in circles. It's like being in a forest and you have no clue where you are. Right? Like you have to have I think if you have a purpose, then it's easy to figure out a direction.
Hmm.
Yeah. If you say that all I want to do is roam around the forest and just see what's out there, that's going to be a totally different type of adventure than saying, I want to get home.
Hmm.
Right? Totally
Gotcha.
different. Totally different way to go through the forest. Totally different way to think about the forest. It's the same thing with writing. Writing is this big unknown. So it's like, what is your purpose in writing this song? Where are you trying to get to? What's your destination? As soon as you define that, then it's easier. It's easier to wrap your head around. You start to, I think you can start to get inspired too, because you can start to conceptualize things in your mind, and then you can start to try to formulate that down on a piece of paper, right? But again, if it's too open ended, it's like there's just nothingness from that. Like, what do you even write down? Just whatever words come to mind. Okay, that's fine. But are you going to do that for every single song that you write? You could. It's not a bad thing. But again, I think that a destination helps.
Gotcha. So that's something to think about. So how about this? If I come up with an intro or the beginning words,
Hmm.
at that moment, if I pause and decide the purpose of the song or the end goal or what I want the people to feel about it, would that work?
If you start writing it and then you make those decisions, is that what you're
Just
saying?
this beginning line, because that can give the feel of the song, what it wants to communicate.
I just want to make sure I understand you. So, are you saying that you write just one line and then you decide the on that purpose, or are you saying
Yeah.
yeah? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you
So that I
could.
can come up with the rest of the song accordingly.
You could. Again, like it's up to you. Like, there's no like. There's no like way that everybody does it,
Hmm.
right? This isn't like this isn't like you're making a wheel, right? A wheel has to have certain properties. A song, I mean, I guess a song has to have some basic properties to it, but it isn't you don't have to come up with it with exactly the same strategy. So if you want to take the strategy that I talk about and you want to experiment with it and see what else you can do with it, by all means. That what's stopping you? Like nobody can tell you that that's a bad or wrong thing to do. You can do whatever you want, right? I mean, it's a different
Hmm.
environment that you're in, say, like than some artist that has a $10 million contract and that has to produce hit songs and they don't have a choice.
Hmm.
That's a totally different scenario than someone such as you who could just you know whatever, like anything goes. You can just write whatever you want. So you just then you just use whatever strategy you'd like. And one of the best things to
Hmm.
do is to learn what other people do. It's like anything else. You learn what other people do, and then you maybe like adopt some of that yourself. Maybe you experiment with what they've done and kind of change it around, see what happens. see what
Yeah.
else you discover. That's okay.
Hmm. Right. Like from what I see, what happens in Bollywood is usually one of the two ways that happens. Either the tune is already been composed by the music composer, and then it is sent to the lyrics writer. In Bollywood, there is no one person as a songwriter. There is always one composer and one lyric writer, and together they do the songwriting. So it's either the first way, the tune is ready first. It can be ready years ago, and then it is selected for a movie, and then it is sent to a lyric writer. That's one way, and the other is the opposite. The lyric writer will first write a poem, and it will be sent to the composer, and composer will accordingly set the melody.
Right. Sure. I mean, I know for a lot of American songs, a lot of songs are written by just a few different composers of songs or writers of songs. And then the artists that you see perform them are not the actual writers of those songs. They just perform the songs. And there's somebody else that has written them. And they might get an opportunity to write with them a little bit. Maybe they might write one or two songs. I'm not saying this happens for everybody, but it's pretty common that a lot of very popular bands or singers, it's very common that they don't write their own songs. That somebody's writing those songs
Okay.
for them. Yeah, yeah. Because you got to
Gotcha.
remember, like, if let's say I have, I don't know, $1 million, and I want to sign you, this guy who's maybe gotten a little bit of popularity seems to have some potential as a songwriter, but you're not proven. But I have
Mm.
this guy who's written a whole bunch of songs that have won Grammys. And I'm going to invest $1 million into you because you're young. Like, this guy is not, good to put on a stage. He doesn't have that look to put on a stage, to put in music videos, things like that. He's a great songwriter. But you have that look. So what do you think I'm going to do? Even though you've already written songs and you like what you've been doing so far has been good and all that, am I going to take a chance on you? Or am I going to take a chance on the guy that's won a bunch of Grammys? Right? The
Mm.
choice
So
is
you wanna
obvious.
combine. So you wanna combine both.
Yeah, I'm gonna let him write the songs and you can perform them.
Hmm.
You can perform them, you can sing them, you know, you'll have an album, it'll have your name on it, and all the songs will be on that album that's under your name, but they're not really your songs. You're just performing those songs, and you put together the recordings of the songs have your voice singing the songs, but they're not really your songs. They're this guy's songs,
Right.
and that's pretty common. That's pretty common.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that happens in Bollywood as well.
yeah,
The composers, the singers, they all are usually behind the camera. And on the camera, they are the lead actors who are performing the song. They are
yeah.
not really singing it, they are lip syncing it.
Okay, okay, that does happen as well. That's not maybe as common here in. I'm not sure if you ever heard of
Yeah,
Milli
but
Vanilli.
no.
Milli Vanilli. Milli Vanilli was this like controversial act in I think like the 80s or maybe it was the 90s. I don't remember. I think it was the 80s. But anyways, they had like this one hit song. It was huge, and they were thought to be singing it all the time. And they did this one performance, and something got messed up with the recording. They were lip syncing it. Something got messed up, but nobody knew that they were lip syncing. Everybody thought that they was actually singing the song, and then something got messed up with the audio, and they were trying to compensate by singing it, but they don't even really speak English.
Oh,
So there was no real way and their voices were horrible, horrible. So they weren't even the singers of the song.
That's strange.
They were just a face. They were just a face and a presence and a look. And that's what was being sold to an audience. And people were outraged because they were fooled. People don't like to be fooled unless they're
Mm.
specifically putting themselves into a situation where they know they're going to be fooled and they're prepared for it. But they don't like to be fooled like and caught by surprise that they're being fooled. People don't like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, like same thing happened when Justin Bieber came to India. He was caught lip syncing,
Mm-hmm.
and people paid a lot of money for his concert and realized they all just paid to hear him lip sync. So there was quite an outrage back then.
Yeah. 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 It's pretty bad.
But otherwise, lip syncing is very common in India.
Mm.
All the movies have it. I don't know if you have seen any Bollywood movie.
Well, movies are different. I mean, movies, the way that
Yeah,
movies are done is very different. A lot of times the everything is voiceovered anyways in movies.
yeah. Other than movies, when the stage shows are happening, usually the songs are pre-recorded and the performer just has to lip sync.
Right.
They
Yeah.
do that just so that the sound quality is pretty good, and they avoid any mistakes. That is the main reason for doing that.
Yeah. A lot of times too, if you're getting like a live version of a series of songs, you're getting an element of what it was like live, but like I don't know if it's happening all the time, but a lot of times the artists are going into the studio and re-recording those parts, and then they're layering it over top of the live version, so they can kind of correct their mistakes, and they can make the
Uh,
live version sound a little more polished.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that craze about live versions here,
Mm.
but I've seen the Beatles, the Pink Floyd, they had a separate album for their live versions.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty common they go back into the studio and just re-record stuff, and they kind of like they place it within the live version to just make it sound a little bit more solid. Yeah.
Hmm. Now, speaking of those great bands, what do you think their songwriting process was?
I mean, again, a lot of those bands were writing with people. It's not like they were writing by themselves. Like I know the Beatles wrote with a few different artists. Have you ever heard of Harry Nilsson?
Yeah, I think so. He was a drummer.
Harry Nilsson was not a drummer; he was a songwriter, and he wrote with all kinds of very popular musicians. You ever heard the song "Lime in the Coconut"? Put a lime in the coconut, you drink it all up. You ever heard that song? It's like this huge, silly song. He wrote like these silly, weird songs that a lot of people have heard of in Western culture more. This is like a long time ago, obviously, but nobody knew who this guy was, and he wrote with all kinds of really popular artists, and he did write with the Beatles as well. The Beatles didn't write just by themselves, but they are also very experimental. Not
Mm,
maybe not so much at first, but as their career developed, they were experimenting with different ways to write. I don't know the intricacies of exactly how they wrote, nor do I Pink Floyd, but I can imagine. I can imagine that they also had purpose. They had like something they were trying to achieve with the songs that they were writing. They had a
mm,
direction. Probably, I would think that they had some sort of direction they wanted to take, even if it was vague. But they had some sort of concept of where they wanted to head towards. And then they just started from there. You get some ideas, and then you kind of build on those ideas, and then you see if it's kind of getting you towards that purpose. If it's not, maybe you kind of rewrite it so it does, or maybe you discover a kind of a more interesting direction from writing towards this direction. You kind of end up discovering something a little bit different, and then you kind of pivot a little bit along the way, and that's okay too, if that's what you decide to do. But I would imagine that there is some element of that. I would think, but who knows? I could be wrong. I could be wrong,
Hmm.
but I would imagine so. I think that's really important. I think that's really important. You know who Dave Grohl is?
Dave
Grohl.
Burrell.
Grohl. Dave Grohl is the singer and guitarist for a band called the Foo Fighters.
Oh yeah, I've heard of Foo Fighters.
He used to be the drummer for Nirvana.
Hmm.
You've heard Nirvana?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Dave Grohl, he's a pretty good songwriter, fairly well proven to be a good songwriter. And he talked about this one time where he wanted to write a song such that when they played the song loud, that the whole crowd would jump up and down.
So was that Smells Like Teen Spirit?
No, that was a Nirvana song. That's a Nirvana
Okay.
song. So he's talking about a Foo Fighters song that he wrote. Yeah. Okay. So I don't remember the name of the song right now. I have the tune in my head, but I don't remember the name of it. Anyway, so that's what he wanted to do. He wanted the crowd to jump up and down. But in order for a crowd to jump up and down, right? Like you would think, like they're not going to jump. Nobody's jumping up and down at that speed, and nobody's going to jump up and down at that speed, right? So you have to like imagine like what speed would they be jumping up and down?
Hmm.
Probably somewhere around here, right? And so now you have a
Yeah.
tempo for a song. Now you know what
Interesting.
speed the song should be, because this is what you want the people to do, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So now, how do you make sure that this sort of motion is accentuated such that it is enticing or it gets people to jump up and down? Well, if you create your instrumental is set up in such a way where it's going boom, 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 like that, then it's going to be probably more of a driving force to jump up and down.
And then also adding some lyrics like up, 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 up.
Maybe, maybe, but that might not matter as much. The lyric,
Hmm.
the like, um, I mean, maybe it just depends. Like, you could. There's a song called "Jump," right? There's songs called "Jump," and it's meant to get people to jump, right? So
Hmm.
like you can have lyrics that do that. In that song, there were no lyrics that were specifically calling for anybody to do anything in particular. It was just the music itself, the instrumental element of the music itself, and the speed of it that was the driving force to getting people to jump up and down. It wasn't the lyrics that really did that. Yeah, and it wasn't the rhythm of the lyrics that got them to do that. It was more the instrumental, really the drums. It was really what the drums were doing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in some cases, I think the percussion can also induce some emotions.
For sure. Well, when people dance or move to a song, they're moving to the beat of the song, right? What is the beat? It's like the pulse. It's this sort of driving force,
The
right?
tempo.
Tempo is the speed at which this driving force or pulse or count moves at.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's what a
Okay.
tempo is. But this is just the pulse or count or beat. Some people call it the beat. There doesn't have to be an instrument playing on each one of these. In most songs, there isn't an instrument that plays on every single beat or count, but it's there. It's always there because it's the thing that helps determine where each note is played. It's each note is played in relation to each one of those beats.
Right.
Yeah. So that is what is the thing that people are usually dancing to, like foundationally. But it's the drums, you're right. It's the drums that kind of determine the feel of like how like what the movement of the song is in
Mm.
relation to that beat, and that will also create an effect of of how somebody might move. Like for instance, if this is my beat and the drums are do 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 do, that's obviously very different than do do da do do da do
Yeah.
do da do do da. Right now, I've taken away that beat, and now that's a totally different feel according to that count than just do 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 do. That's like a dance song. Do do
Mm.
do. That's a dance song. But if I go do da do do da, it's still the same. It's still the same beat. The beat is not different, but the percussive element is different, and that's what that
Okay.
and that the second version would probably have you move like this, right? It's totally different.
So basically, if I change the metronome, it is not going to change the feel. It's not
Well,
gonna.
if you change the tempo, so metronome is something that helps you know the speed of
The song.
whatever song you're playing. So if you speed up or slow down, then yeah, of course it's going to have an effect. Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Um, but I think this already might give you some ideas of what to consider when you're writing songs.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. There's a lot of elements to it. I mean, that's just the beginning. Like I'm just giving you like the tip of the iceberg, like the very, 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 very tip of the iceberg. There's so much that is involved in writing a song. So much to consider. So many moving parts.
All right. So I think we have talked about 40 to 50 minutes about songwriting.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the thumbnails that you came up with.
Let's talk about first you. You were saying you were feeling low on energy as well. So what do you think that it's about?
I got sick. I got sick. So I'm just coming
Uh,
over it. I'm not sure if you noticed, there's something a little bit different going on with me in terms of like visually how things are looking. Do you notice any difference?
you're sitting.
That's right.
That's the difference. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So this 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 setup I have is it's a type of desk that moves up and down.
Standing desk. Yeah.
Yeah, it can move to a standing desk or I can move down to a sitting desk. So right now it's moved down. So I'm just sitting and relaxing. I decided to change it up because, yeah, a little bit low energy, getting over a cold. Last Saturday, I decided to meet up with somebody downtown, and it took 2 hours to get there by subway. The subway system here is atrocious. It's absolutely horrendous. It's really awful. So it took 2 hours to get there because, like, even though it was like 10, 11 o'clock at night, something like that, it was about 10 o'clock at night actually that I left. Um, uh, there were all kinds of like weird stops, like the subway, the train just stopped. Like it's not like it doesn't. I don't know if there's no way it was busy. There's no way it was busy, but I guess they're always doing repairs and I don't know. It was
Mm.
just very strange. So we had to keep getting off at stops and then waiting for another train. Maybe switching sides. Like the north train was now becoming the south train, and the south train was becoming the north train, and it happened like a few times. It was by the time I got there, it took like 2 hours, and so I hung out with him for like maybe an hour, and then I was like, I gotta go because by the time I got back home, it's gonna be really late, and I gotta wake up early in the morning because I promised somebody I was gonna hang out with him for breakfast.
Mm.
So by the time I got back, it was also like took another 2 hours. I spent 4 hours traveling just to hang out with this guy for an hour. So not worth
Mm.
it. And then on top of it, I got sick.
I can relate because when I have to meet someone, some of my college friends, they stay. quite far from here. So every time we meet, we I'm the one who has to travel for like 2 hours plus one side, each side.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it. So I don't know. I mean, I'll do it again, but maybe next time I'll just drive down.
Okay.
Because
So
if I drive,
driving.
it take me like 30 minutes.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's significantly different.
yeah. It's not worth it. Like, why would anybody take the subway? Like, it's just not worth it. I mean, if it's during rush hour, when it's really busy on the roads, it's a different story. Sure. But late at night, like, there's no point. I mean, the only thing that's nice for is that it's very expensive. Parking is very expensive, typically, if I want to park my car.
Typically, it's completely reverse here. If you catch a train or a metro here, you're bound to reach much faster. And if you take a vehicle, a four wheeler, you're more likely to run into traffic because it's India. It's, there's always more cars than you expect.
Right, right, I'm sure. How are the roads there? Are they well maintained?
Horrible.
They're horrible.
Like the contractors here are pretty greedy. So they on purpose build subpar roads so that they can earn a contract to build it again the next year. And
It's the
they
same
do.
here. It's the same here. It's the same, I
Oh,
think, everywhere. They use really bad materials they know are going to degrade, so that way
and they
they're.
purposely
Yeah.
they always make the roads just before the monsoon arrives. So now in my city, there's construction going on everywhere. You go to each important road, there is the road being built. And we know that next month it's going to rain and the roads are going to get bad again.
They do this
It's
just so they
horrible.
can make money.
And it's been happening for decades. It's it's a, like an adopted scheme of the government or something.
How do these things get fixed? Do you think there's a way? Or do you think that things are just too ingrained in the way that these systems operate that there's no way to really change it? And even if somebody tried, it would just never happen.
I don't know. It would take a strong person to come forward. Uh, Again, I don't want to get into politics.
Sure.
I have like 10% knowledge of it, and you know, talking about it doesn't yield anything.
It's true.
So I avoid getting there. So yeah, in the end, it's all about politics,
Yeah.
the decision makers.
I understand. And politics are also, can easily be a sore topic.
Yeah. Besides, I have never been interested in it. So
Yeah.
because every time I know, some people might get agitated for no reason, and in the end, it doesn't yield anything. So why even go there?
Right. That's fair. I get that. I get that. So you just spend your time thinking about other things that are more important to you, which is probably
Yeah,
healthy.
which I can do something about at least.
That's healthy. I agree. That's very healthy. Uh,
And if someone has to talk about politics, I feel ultimately they should have a goal to get into that. Otherwise, there's no point talking about it because you
I
can only change or make an impact when you go down there, and it takes like 20 years to get to that level.
I think there's a lot of ways to help drive change, not just being somebody in politics, to change things that are like, on the government level, right? Like, I think that nowadays it's easier to have an impact as a common person than we think. And for example, Um, if you if you create a situation where you have a platform, where you have a voice that people respect and people pay attention to your voice, even if you're not in politics, I think that could put pressure on political leaders to to make certain decisions. You know what I mean? Like there's certain people that have like a strong voice about things that a lot of people really listen to them, and through that they essentially rally a good amount of people that want particular changes, and then large groups of people, or even small groups of people. There's been lots of examples lately where small groups of people have a very loud voice and they insist on changes at the government level, and those changes get implemented because they're concerned about the amount of power that these people have. I mean, there's been a lot of those types of examples, at least here. I don't know about there, but there's been a lot of those types of examples here.
Yeah, that's something that should be available throughout India. I think what you're talking about is Twitter and social media, and
Yeah, there's that. Twitter,
yeah,
social media, different podcasts.
but here's the thing: in India, if you try to speak against the people in power, you're actually inviting trouble, and not just for yourself, for your family as well.
Right.
Because it has happened with at least one person that everybody knows. Like in every neighborhood, there would be one such story who raised their voice and it didn't go well.
Gotcha. So people are
So,
wary.
yeah, because the political people here, to be very honest, to be very, very honest and open, they are by background criminals.
Okay.
So, to become a politician, you have to be a certain level of criminal here. You have to be a goon, you have to have people around you who are called bahubalis, basically the people who will be willing to beat someone up or even kill someone up. You have to have a group of goons around you. If that's not the case, then you are not a politician, really.
That's wild.
Yeah. And most, I'm not saying every politician, but most, 90, more than 90% of the politicians in India are uneducated criminals, goons, leaders of gangs.
So I wonder how things thrive because, I mean, in a
That's,
lot of ways,
yeah,
India
that's
is doing
surprising.
actually
That's,
quite well. Like India is
yeah,
a very
that's the surprising part.
yeah, India is like highly respected around the world as a thriving country
Yeah.
that is seeing a
The
lot of
only
economic
reason,
growth, and it's interesting.
right, that's the only reason India has been doing as well it is because of the executives or the officers who are in power. Like these are called collectors, district collectors. Now, their role is to execute and plan things, and but they are only allowed the power on the district level. So they are basically the administrators who are doing well, and these are the most highly educated people. They have the highest IQ. They are chosen few. Basically, every year only 50 people are selected,
Right.
and their exam in India is the toughest exam in the world. It is said so.
That's really interesting. Like if you think about it, that even as you described it, criminals, goons, these like the folks that are in power in India that you've described. It's interesting that they have ultimately the power to decide on how society is going to function, and
Right.
at the end of the day, it's still the decision is still to ensure that folks are well educated, that they have access to food, that they have access to resources, that there's still this
Mm.
understanding that this is important for society. For
Yeah.
them, I guess, to remain in power to some degrees, you have to make sure that folks have a certain ability to have to create a certain type of life for themselves.
But again, if they are given the complete choice, they they wouldn't go for that. They would totally go for complete autocracy because
So, what do you think
they
really
don't really.
prevents that? Because I mean, if these folks are the ones that are in power, then what prevents that from happening?
The people that I spoke before of, the collectors
Hmm.
and some lobbyists, they together suggest them that this is the right thing to do right now for their image and for their political party. So basically, everything that they do is for their image. It's never really about what people want, to be very honest. It's always about their image. Like, even uh, when we got these COVID vaccines
Hmm.
and we got the certificate of the vaccination, they came along with the image of the party leader. So it was like marketing campaign. The vaccine would have come along anyway. It's not that the person sat behind the scientists and told them, okay, try this and try that. There was no role of this person to play
Right.
in bringing up the vaccine.
Right. They just wanted to attach their name to it so that that way they
In
could
everything,
be.
not just that,
Yeah.
everything, every scheme that government brings up, they have to attach their photo so that it creates a mental correlation between the progress and them, but it's backfiring.
So you'd say
It's
that
not
these
working well.
folks that are in power are now at a stage where mentally they're more thinking about how to remain in positions of power, because they're more interested in that than sort of maybe the criminal activity that they've been a part of in the past.
Yeah,
Which is
in fact there
interesting.
was
Which is
uh,
in essence it's beneficial for the society, right? Because if they were more interested in the criminal activity and and making sure that they were in a position to maximize the criminal activity that they could be a part of, that would be a lot more of a dangerous society than them just simply being interested in maintaining power.
but that doesn't mean their followers are not being criminal. They are still having cases against them, their workers, uh, like the rape cases. I, I don't have the proper statistics, but most of the politicians or local politicians have some kind of rape cases on them. Now that's surprising, and they are still roaming free.
That's crazy.
Even even one politician that I know of that lives in my area, years ago I had heard that he was charged with a rape case, and he's still a political leader. He's still well respected around here,
Wild.
and and that makes me angry about feminists because again that's a political stand. Because you know you are fighting for women's right, and you know that these politicians are roaming around freely. Why not first do something about that?
Seems backwards. It's very
I
backwards.
really don't know. I really don't know what's. Uh, so yeah, again, it's
I
gonna
got
just
you.
make us upset. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. I got you talking about things that are, yeah, that are
Mm.
emotionally charged, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. Like, why would you not be emotionally charged to discuss and think about these things? They're not. It's not a pleasant and enjoyable discussion to have, for sure. It's not.
Mm.
It's not something that you would want to be spending your time thinking about because there's nothing about these types of discussions that like are fun
Productive.
or productive. Yeah, it's just it's
Yeah.
like there's nothing. It's way out of your hands, and um, That's
Yeah,
really
unless I decide to be an IAS officer, the collector,
yeah.
then it's okay for me to discuss, but I don't have that interest.
Right. Right. Have you are you familiar with the news outlet? I think it's called Wion. Is it Wion or Wion? Wion.
Yeah, it's like the short form of news, correct?
Maybe, I'm not sure. I thought it was like a pretty popular news outlet. There's one lady that reports on there that I really like. She's great. She's really fantastic. She's like I can't remember her name, but she's her perspectives on what's going on around the world are very different. Like she really gets you to think, like, oh, that's interesting. Like I haven't heard that type of perspective before. That's fascinating. And it really gets you to stop and think more about the different things that are going on in the world. I can't remember her name now, but she's great. She's like one of my favorite in the world. Like out of all the like traditional media types of reporting that's done, like she's the best. I think she's fantastic. I gotta look her up now. I want to see if I can find her. Let's see. Let's do a share screen. I wonder if actually, you know what? Let's just cancel that from. I'm going to bring this up, and then we'll see if I go into the share screen if it will automatically let me. I got to get better at understanding how the share screen thing works. Here we go. Start sharing. Okay, you can see that.
Yeah.
All right. Even though it kind of blocks me out of the picture here. Okay, so Wyon. Here we go.
One news reporter.
Yeah. So here's the outlet. Woman reporters. Here we go. Female reporters. I don't know if she still reports. Let's see if I can find an image of her. I think, yeah, this lady. Palki Sharma. I think that's her. Yeah. Let's look her up. Palki Sharma. Yeah, this is definitely her. Yeah, she's really good. I like her a lot. How would you say that
Is she
last
from
name?
Canada?
No. She's.
Sharma.
How do you say the last name though? This is this.
Oh, Upadhyay.
Okay. No, she's not from Canada. Wyan is a. Okay, let's just go back and because it describes what Wyan is. So it's okay. So it's reporting breaking news from South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, like that whole area.
Oh,
Yeah. Wyan is an Indian international English language news channel headquartered in Noida, India. Is that how you said it? Noida?
Noida.
Noida?
Noida.
Noida, India. It is owned by the Esso Group and is part of the Z Media network of channels. Yeah.
I see.
You've never heard of
Okay.
Wyan before?
No, I feel it's for the NRIs and other Western countries, I think,
Oh, is it?
because we have other news channels here that run 24/7,
Okay.
and uh, they are all paid by the ruling party.
Oh, interesting.
So I
Anyways,
believe the
yeah.
news that she or the this channel might be showing there would be much more unbiased than what we see here.
Yeah, she's great. She also reports on First Post. Not sure if you've ever heard of First Post, but she also reports there too. Let's look up her Wikipedia. Here we go, Wikipedia. No, it's Y on Wikipedia. How come it's not showing her? She doesn't have a Wikipedia page? Come on. She must. Anyways, whatever. I guess
Now
I'll.
it's up to you
Yeah.
to feed Wikipedia with info.
Yeah, for real. All right, but anyways, you get the point. She's great. Like I really whenever I hear her talking about different things that are happening around the world, um, it just gets me to stop and think more about how we, like, how heavily we weigh the type of information we're fed by a variety of media
Mm.
sources. I think more reporters should exist like her. That's for sure. And I don't know if it's like a cultural thing either. If that's the reason why you get this unbiased sort of uh, like the type of information from her. I don't know if it's like more of a cultural thing or not, but because I haven't heard it from anywhere else, like the type of reporting that she does. But
I'll have to
anyways,
look it up, but I'm not sure if I will.
yeah, it could also just be that I like India culture that much that maybe I'm biased.
But you won't if you get into Indian politics.
Well, that's fair. Well, by the sounds of it, it sounds like very, um, yeah, it sounds concerning to say the least. Let's just say it sounds very concerning. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think BBC had made a documentary on the current ruling leader, and they showed an unbiased version of him, which they didn't like. The the ruling party didn't like,
Hmm.
and yeah, they are very manipulative. They know how to shut out media. They know how to silence people. So that video didn't reach to their followers, who are basically the Hindi speakers, and BBC had made it in English. So yeah, it's they are very what you can say. What's another word for manipulative?
Conniving.
Mm, foxy. I don't know. Basically, they have hypnotized their followers in a way
Gotcha.
that they are very intolerant,
Right. They're cunning.
and
That's the word. Cunning.
I don't know. Basically, the followers are blindly following them, so it has become like a religion to them.
Hmm.
So they won't tolerate any harsh word against their favorite leader. By the way,
What's
there is one reporter. He uses satire and comedy to report the unbiased version of the politics. His name is Samdeesh Bhatia,
okay?
but most of the time he does that in Hindi. So I don't know if you will find any video that is completely in English. But if there is something, I would send you.
Yeah, you have to.
He's yeah, he's pretty funny, and that's why he's safe because he doesn't really comes out right and points out that this is wrong and this should not be happening or like that. He
Right.
brings out that in a funny way out of the
Okay.
followers themselves,
Interesting.
and he shows basically that the followers are clueless. They know
Yeah.
nothing about what they are supporting. He goes to these rallies and asks them the questions about why this rally is happening, and they don't even know. They are there just for their daily wage. They are being paid to participate in the rally.
Interesting. It's wild. What's your where do you think in the world has the most I mean, I don't know if anywhere really does, but where do you think in the world has the most or the least biased is maybe the best way to pose the question, the least biased reporting?
Hmm. That would be hard to determine because I haven't seen foreign news much. Hmm. Hmm. I really don't know. What do you think?
I have no idea. I really have no idea. I don't know. Like, I think probably everywhere has like an amount of bias reporting that you just like you can't even really fully appreciate. Um, yeah, I think
Hmm.
everywhere is like that.
Maybe maybe we can look it up and we can use a different version of I learned about. It's called Perplexity.
Perplexity.
Yeah, it's an advanced version because it will fetch the data from the live news as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you want to try that? Perplexity AI,
Let's try it. Let's look it up. Let's
and we'll
go back
search
to the share screen for
which
you so you
country
can
has the
see.
most unbiased media.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Here we go. We'll go over here. I'm going to go back to my share screen for you so you can see what I'm putting in. Okay. So let's see here. I got to move over this direction because otherwise, when you see this in the recording on YouTube, when it goes up there, my face would be all cut out. But anyways, okay. So perplexity. I'm not sure if I'm perplexity with the
Yeah,
E. Perplexity AI. Okay, here we go. Here it is. Okay, this is very much like looks like ChatGPT. It's interesting. So let's just close that. That bothers me. So we can just type in anything like we would, right? Where
yeah.
in actually what media outlet in the world is the least biased? I mean, I know that like CNN used to be considered the least biased media outlet in the world at one point, but it's definitely not like that anymore.
Mhm.
So
What does it say?
based on the search results, the Associated Press and Reuters, okay, are widely considered to be among the least biased news sources globally. The Associated Press earned a reliable score of 51.98 and a bias score of minus 1.06. I don't even understand what those numbers mean. Are they good? Like,
Maybe that's a percentage. So 51 is like more than 50 people. 50% people think it is unbiased, and
what?
negative
Well, let's look
negative
up.
bias is.
What would the reliability, what would be the maximum reliability? Am I spelling maximum wrong? Yeah, I am. Putting an extra I in there. Maximum reliability score a news outlet could get. Actually, let's put it both. What was maximum reliability score and the best bias score a news outlet could get. Okay, so now we'll have something to compare those numbers to. Okay, so the search results state that reliability scores for articles and news outlets range from 0 to 64, with scores above 40 generally considered good reliability. A score of 64 would be the maximum possible reliability score, indicating the highest level of factual reporting and reliability. Associated Press earned the highest reliability score, mentioned at 51.98, while Reuters at 51.64. It's pretty good, but still there's some level of bias to it. The bias scores range, and it also like how is it scored? Like how do they even come up with that scoring? Right, like that would be good to get
Mm,
into, but we may be going way too deep down the rabbit hole if we start to do that. But maybe we might want to. I don't know. But let's read on for now. So bias scores. The bias scores range from minus 42, most extreme left bias, to I got it, plus 42, most extreme right bias.
uh,
Okay, a bias score of 0
nice.
indicates a neutral, unbiased source with minimal or unbalanced bias. But again, how do they get to that score? Is that like overall based upon all reports that are being done? If that's the case, then that means that what if you have a whole bunch of reports that are getting a minus 42 and a whole bunch of reports, an equal amount of reports getting a plus 42, then it might make you look like you have a zero score when in fact it depends on the type of things reported on will determine the type of bias that you're getting, right? So
But that's fair. They cannot report both the things at the same time, left and right. So if they report left in the morning and right in the evening, that still balances out.
no, but I'm saying like if they're saying like, okay, I don't know, things that are going on in certain parts of the world, they're reporting with a very left bias. But then things that are going on in a different part of the world, they're doing with
Hmm.
a very right bias, right? Then that's not really, in my viewpoint, that's not really unbiased reporting because you're biased in both scenarios. You're very biased. But if you're saying, like, if you're taking like specific scenarios, specific circumstances, and with those, you're reporting even an extreme bias at one moment, but then the opposite extreme bias in the other moment, then at least you're getting both ideas. Even that in itself, I think, is not really good, right? So again, like, how are they determining these scores? I don't know.
I think they might have found a way out to avoid those extreme bias, but usually uh, the most reliable way to get these scores is, I think, by having a group survey. What is it called? Focus group.
Okay, and getting people's opinions.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe. I think that
I
might
think that's the
help.
oldest way. I think that's the oldest way to gather some
You have like
feedback.
3,000 people that give their feedback, 10,000 people that give their feedback, whatever it is, and
Yeah, they are
maybe,
selected randomly and from various demographics.
maybe. I think that that could help. And there's got to be more than that done to determine those scores. I think the
We can look it
truthfulness.
up.
Yeah,
We
we
can
can.
ask Perplexity.
Yeah, we're gonna look that up in a moment. But the one where it's like reliability on information of like the uh, the source of truth. I think that's easier to determine because if you have, let's say, a whole bunch of reporters that, but mind you, they could all have their biases as well. So if you have a whole bunch of people reporting on a particular subject or a particular set of circumstances and providing information, well, I think it's still actually easier to get to a source of truth because even if you were to take people that have biases and you know that they have particular biases and you get them to report on a particular circumstance and they're all saying the same thing about it, you could be pretty sure, I think, that that's the source of truth. Because even with their biases, if they're all kind of saying the same facts, then chances are that's probably what's actually going on. That's just what I think. I don't know. Do you think that makes sense?
So are you saying basically if they are eventually reporting the same thing, they
Yeah,
are
if they have,
unbiased,
if no, I'm saying if they
even if
have,
they are
I'm talking
even if they
about.
are biased motive.
Well, I'm saying it like in terms of figuring out if something is a source of truth and it's a reliable source of information, right? So,
Mm,
how do you know that something is a source of truth? I think one way you can know. There's lots of different ways to know, but I think one way you can know is you take people that you are aware of their biases and they've got like conflicting biases. They've got different viewpoints and different biases. They go out to the field and they're extracting information from a particular
mm,
situation, and then they're each individually giving you that information, and they're saying the same facts. They might be
mm,
providing their opinions, but the facts are the same. Then you can be. I think
mm.
you can be pretty certain that you're getting the truth, right? Like, what do you
Right.
think? Do you
And
think that's
I
true? Do you think
think
that makes sense?
Yeah, factually, of course, it will give a picture that, and then it will give you the option of forming an opinion
Yeah.
if you just state the facts. But I think another way of gathering that would be to ask their opinion first and then give them the option of the completely opposite opinion and see how they react. If they're completely close to it, then the information source itself is kind of biased.
Yeah. I mean, that's I think a way to determine some level of bias for sure. And that's the other side of the coin, right? So there's the source of truth side, and then there's the bias side, right? I mean, obviously they're intertwined and they have an effect on each other. But I'm just saying, like,
Hmm.
you can still get to a truth even with a bias. I think it's possible.
By just stating the facts.
Yeah, by just stating the facts, especially if it's again multiple people saying the same thing, and they have they have different worldviews, different ways that they see the world, different perspectives on how things work, and the and whether particular systems they have views of them being good or bad, and they have just sort of different lenses that they look through, but they all state the same information. They all say that, like, they all give the same facts for the most part. The side of the coin in
But
terms of the
but
source
here's
of,
the thing:
yeah.
even the facts need to be analyzed, even if they are true. I feel it needs a trained eye to make sense out of the fact. For example, India claims to have a GDP of 8%.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
that's a very good percentage. But if someone from the inside, a trained person who knows all the facts, comes and says that this figure is manipulated, then you have to listen to him because he has a valid point. What the person said was the GDP is 8% only if you account for the current monetary value. But if you discount the inflation, then the GDP comes to only 8%. Sorry, GDP comes to only 4%, not 8%.
Right.
So the main reason GDP looks so such big, uh, much bigger than it is because they have included the inflation inside the GDP,
Right.
which should not be done.
Right. Sure. Sure. So again, that's why I think that to get to a source of truth, you don't rely on one person to report on something. You rely on a multiple people to report on something that maybe have different backgrounds, different lenses that they look through in the world, different levels of expertise on a particular subject. But if they all end up saying the same thing, then that's when you can
Hmm.
go, okay, chances are this information I'm being given is factual.
Yeah, and I'm saying that there should be an added element of fact analysis to give the complete picture.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, with that element included in all that. So all the
Hmm.
information you're given is from fact analysis, people that know a lot about the subject, people that maybe don't, people that have different viewpoints, people that have different ways that they look at the world. All those people are put into a bucket to navigate through a particular situation or a particular topic, to extract information and data, and then provide that in a way that the average person could absorb. And if
Hmm.
all those people are all saying the same things, then, I mean, unless they're all paid off, which, who knows, right? But
Hmm.
let's take that out of the equation, because then that gets too conspiratorial. That you know, you can probably conclude that you're getting a source of truth.
Hmm.
And I think
Right.
that the source of truth matters more to me than a bias. Because I don't care what people's biases are. It could be as extreme as you want. Just tell me the facts. If the facts are the facts, I don't really care what you think about it. I just want to know the facts.
Hmm.
Right? Like if you think that GDP at 8% means the end of the world, you can think whatever you want. I don't really care. Or if you think it's the best thing in the world, okay, fine, whatever. What I care about is the facts. That's all I care about at the end of the day. Not really what you
Hmm.
think about it. Not how you interpret the facts. Right? I think
Hmm.
people get too caught up in how other people interpret things rather than just simply what the facts are. Like, I just need to know that this shirt is black. I don't need to know how you
Hmm.
interpret the black shirt.
Yeah, of course. There'll always be a set of people who will be satisfied with the facts alone, and then there'll be people who wanna deep dive of why these facts are turning out to be the way they are.
Yeah, I think that's fine. You can deep dive into it, but I don't care about what you think about it. I don't care what your opinion is. I don't care about your personal truths. I just care about
Hmm.
objective reality.
Hmm.
Right?
I think that would be hard to do even for AI. Like whenever you ask them for a fact, they always attach some disclaimer along with it.
Well, yeah,
What do you think?
sure. Because it's based upon human, like information that's provided initially by humans. Right?
Hmm.
AI right now is parsing. Excuse me. AI right now is parsing through all the information that it can gather that was created by human beings.
Hmm.
Right? So it's not like AI is looking at the actual situations that are occurring and then extracting data directly from the source itself. It's extracting
Yeah.
data from, the sources that have already, like, the sources of information are from data that's already been gathered directly from the source. So it's like you got the source of where the information is coming from in itself, the foundation of it. That's extracted by
Right.
human beings. The data is then provided so the general public can consume it, and then AI then parses through that top layer. It's not
Yeah.
going
AI
all the
just
way
gives
in.
us the yeah, it gives us the averaged out information basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So it'll be much better. And I believe that we could potentially get into a world like that where AI itself could have its own ability to extract information directly from the source of where
I
that
just had
information
an
comes from.
idea.
Yeah,
I just had an idea. What do you think? Let me know.
sure.
What if in future there is a group of people who decide to promote AI as the president or the prime minister or the political leader, local leader? Like come and vote for AI and AI will make the decisions and we'll make it completely open. You can put in the prompt. AI will AI will gather your prompts and come up with the final solution on this date and this time.
I think that eventually that probably will be what happens. I think
Agreed.
that I think that we will trust in AI much more to be able to make good decisions for people than we will entrust people to do so. I think we're losing more and more faith for people to make big decisions for large groups of people. We're losing more and more faith in that. As things become more digitized, we're much more. I think we're going to become much more willing to trust in systems that are less involved, like that have less involvement from human beings that affect a large group of people. Like having engagement, like with you, for example, on this very small scale, that I don't think that'll ever really be lost. I think people always want to have that. But that ability to just connect with another human being, that'll always have its
Mm.
value. And there will be that part of us that will be interested in connecting with like an AI. It'll be both. But I think and then maybe in terms of like, being in a work environment, there will be both. You'll have your team that you connect with, and one of those team members might be an AI, and you'll get like a different
Hmm.
point of view. You get the human point of view plus the AI. Now, it could also be the same in government at some point too, where you have like AI working with a president
Hmm.
or something like that, or maybe you have like an AI that ultimately makes the final call, but like somebody who we still call a president who has the ability to like have that direct communication, more of a direct ability to communicate with that AI maybe. But I think it's also very easy in that type of world where large quantities of people can all communicate with that one AI, and then that ultimately that AI is communicating back with everybody to say what its decision is on things. You might not have to have another human being involved.
Hmm.
Maybe just human beings to implement the ideas or the solutions that the AI comes up with.
Yeah, maybe we can ask Perplexity. What do you think about you being the president or AI being the president?
Well, I bet I know what it's going to say. I have a sneaking suspicion. But let's ask. I'm also going to write a note here.
Or maybe we can ask what is the possibility of AI becoming the president in future?
That's probably a better question. What do you think the possibility is that AI will be in positions of power such as a leader of a country? Okay. So, based on the search results provided, it is highly unlikely that AI will be in
Ah.
positions of direct leadership or power over humans, such as being the leader of a country anytime soon. The key points are while AI capabilities are rapidly advancing, the search results emphasize that there are certain uniquely human qualities that effective leaders need, which AI currently lacks, such as compassion, wisdom, emotional intelligence, and the ability to motivate teams. The role of AI in leadership is seen more as an enabler and support tool to augment and inform human decision making rather than directly replacing human leaders. AI is viewed as lacking the soul, creativity, and ability. So it's just talking about how human. This is really just reiterating how human beings see the function of AI generally, but it's not really giving like because AI currently doesn't have the ability to talk about its opinions on things. That's not what AI does, right? It doesn't talk about what its thoughts are on things. It talks just about what humans think at
Hmm.
this point, right? So AI is not even developed enough to be able to answer that question as we want it to.
Hmm.
So we're not
So
quite there yet.
basically, yeah, maybe another 2 years because it's rapidly developing.
Yeah, maybe when AI has like more of a mind of its own. Right now, AI doesn't really have a mind of its own.
So I'm guessing next election there would be a party who would be promoting AI as the, you know, decision maker.
Well, I don't know if it'll be that soon.
No,
When's the next election
next
there?
election is 5 years. So currently the election is
Okay,
going on.
okay, you mean
So
there?
and next will be 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because here, the next election I think is next year, 2025. In the United States, it begins this year. I'm pretty sure.
Mm.
So yeah, it's possible. Things have changed dramatically, like dramatically, in a very short amount of time. Like think how much has happened just since like 2020, 4 years. A lot of huge
And to be
things.
very honest, it doesn't even feel like 4 5 years.
I know.
Like it feels like just recently. I was in 2019. I was doing this, doing that, whatever I was doing in 19. It just feels like in the recent past. It doesn't feel like it's been 5 years.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Wow.
It's freaky.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so anything else that you have in mind?
No, that's it. I think we should call it. I've got the name for this today's podcast: songwriting, unbiased
And
media.
politics.
Yeah, I put unbiased media. What do you think about that?
Sure.
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
have talked about two things.
Well, we talked a little bit about we introduced perplexity to me and to our zero
Mhm.
viewers.
Yeah, but maybe we can add it in the title and it will become a keyword.
Maybe you never know. Maybe this will be the video that gets one view. And then in that and if it does, if you're our one viewer, you don't know the rules. We didn't talk about the rules this time, but it's not your fault. It's not your fault that you viewed the video. We forgive you.
It's very, very unlikely that this person would be still watching.
Very unlikely. But if you are, feel free to say hello in the comments, and we'll say hello back. But and then we'll also tell you the rules that you should never watch this ever again. Like, what are you doing?
By the way, you were gonna ask something about the thumbnails.
I was going to ask you about thumbnails. Well, not really ask. I was just going to tell you that I love that you put the effort in to make the thumbnails, and the thumbnails they made me smile. It was like that's awesome. I like that you try to clearly you're really thinking like how can I design these. It was nice. It was nice.
Yeah. I was actually trying to remove the background from the image, but the app couldn't figure out how to remove the background because there are two people in that.
Right.
Usually, when it's one person, it can easily remove the background. So this
Right.
time, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to separate the images and then remove the background for each separately.
Sure. Okay. Why not? Yeah. Okay. I'm interested to see what you come up with. Sounds like you're getting
Yeah.
creative, which is so. This is cool. It's fun to just be creative. Have fun
Mm.
with it. Enjoy. All right, man. Always a pleasure. Always a good time, and I hope that you have a little bit more energy today. Now that we got a chance to
Yeah, same
chat.
for you. I
Thank
hope
you.
you get a good rest and recover completely
Thank
tomorrow
you.
morning.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon. I'll talk to you next week.
Sure. Bye.
Okay. Bye.